Obama said aliens are real, and I want to talk about it. On Conan O'Brien's late night show, Obama was asked if he thought aliens were real, to which he responded, yes, they are, but that he hasn't seen them under Area 51, and if they are under there, that he hasn't been notified of anything. And then he later made a clarifying statement on Instagram explaining what he meant by that. I'm your host, Seb, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment down below and tell me whether or not you guys think aliens are real. But let's go ahead and dive into this a little bit more. And so, on Instagram, Obama clarified that he meant that they were real from like a probability point of view, in which he said that because of how vast and big the universe is, that it makes sense that aliens do exist somewhere, but that under his presidency, he has never made any contact with any aliens. He's never spoken to any of them, nor seen any of them either. And so I just thought it was really funny that he had to clarify that on Instagram, because his quote was taken like everywhere. Like, I've seen a lot of people posting about it, hence why I'm making this video. But I also wanted to state that I thought it was such a random question to be asked, because of all the things that Obama could be talking about, you know, like talking about like relevant news or things that are actually happening in the US. It's just so funny that he was just randomly asked like, oh, do you think aliens are real? I do want to say that I think Obama makes a great point, and it's kind of the cop-out answer, to be honest with you, whenever anybody is talking about aliens, just because, like, yeah, the main argument is that, well, aliens probably do exist just because of how big the universe is. You know, they haven't found any, like, immediate sources of life outside of Earth, or at least not as far as, like, I'm updated to, but they believe that it makes sense just because, you know, there's a lot of sustainable planets for life, and the fact that on our Earth, you know, we evolved, or at least it's the scientific leading theory, that it makes sense that other planets could have some sort of species or organism that eventually evolves into living, breathing, walking, talking, communicating, you know, building up a spaceship and flying over to other planets. Like, in theory, it makes sense, but we haven't yet to seen it. And maybe it's probably just because, like, how big the universe is. You know, there could be a world where on the other side of the universe, there is, like, a real life breathing organism just like us, but because of how far we are, it doesn't make sense for them to have ever come this way. And so, you know, from that point of view, it makes sense. But as far as everything else, like, there hasn't been any real concrete proof that aliens exist, yes or no. Personally, I think there are some good and some bad arguments for why aliens might or might not exist. And the first thing that I want to talk about is that stupid buried alien mummy thing that they found, and they like showed it in like one of the court trials, and we're like, oh yeah, this is like a alien's body. And I don't know, it was just the most goofy looking thing. The shit looked fake as fuck. And the fact that the government tried to press it off as like, oh yeah, this is real. I don't think anybody bought that for like a singular second. And who knows, you know, maybe we're the dumb ones. Maybe it actually ended up being like a real alien body. But I just didn't believe it. I don't know anybody that has. If maybe you're the person out there that did. But just the fact that they tried to show this to us, I don't know. I think that in the grand scheme of the alien argument, this didn't really help at all. In fact, I think it hurt it a little bit. But it's just a crazy moment. The next alien recent event that I think is actually pretty compelling to the alien argument is the Florida Mall incident. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but a couple years ago, there was this like big Florida Mall thing where a bunch of police came down, and like they had like the whole city's police squadron like parked outside of this mall. And there were a lot of people like fleeing the area, saying that some creature appeared in the middle of the mall. And we never got any footage from it. We never got any like body cam footage, no videos, no CCTV. Like, everything about that event that could have been recorded just is gone. Like, nobody has any media about it. There's some like helicopter footage, but it's all really grainy and really hard to tell. And then the Florida police tried to blame it off as like, oh no, it was nothing big. Like, it was just some regular shooter or whatever. But everybody that has been there with like testimonies have all said that there was never any guns, that it was always some creature thing, and that they were running away from it. And for them to say that it was like a shooter or whatever, and like one or two people, it's just complete bogus, because they had the whole Florida police squadron over there. And so for an event that size, like, I don't know, I've never seen that many police cars pull up to just a like one person shooter event before. And that's not, I'm not trying to make fun of like school shooter events at all. I'm just trying to say that for them to argue that that's what it was, it just doesn't make sense, especially with the lack of footage. Like, we see all the footage come out from all the other events, so why wouldn't this one have it? And so I think it's a pretty compelling one. I can't say that it actually like confirms or denies anything, but just the events surrounding this, just a little bit shady. So I want to mention that. The next thing that I have to mention over here, of course, is the pyramids. And a lot of theologians will try to tell you that, oh well, the Egyptians actually built it by using these crazy like advanced technology slopes or whatever, and just carrying the limestone blocks on top of this pyramid. But I just don't think it makes any sense. And it was crazy because in elementary school or middle school, I remember watching this video of like somebody made like a cartoon about how the Egyptians built the pyramids, and you see like all these giant slopes or whatever. But when you actually do the math, like the size of those limestones and carrying them up however many thousands of, or I guess hundreds of feet to build that pyramid, like it doesn't make any sense. And for them to have the technology all the way back then, just crazy. And the amount of coincidences like surrounding the pyramids as well, like the fact that there's 3 of them and they formulate like a triangle, and they like relate to some specific coordinates on the earth that's related to like the magnetic pole or something like that. Like I can't even describe it to you guys. There's just like a whole thing. You guys can look it up on your own, but it's insane. And for theologians to argue that, oh, Egyptians actually did have the technology for this, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why aren't we like at that level anymore? I know that the Library of Alexandria got burned down and it reset us like thousands of years, but there's no way that we have like hybrid cars and we can't figure out how the fuck they put a pyramid together. And so I think that's a pretty good argument for why, aliens might exist. The next one I want to talk about is the recent government hearings where they have talked about aliens. Now, I don't remember if like there's a specific name for these cases or these case files, but it's all come out thanks to the like 75-year Act or whatever, where after so many years of the government having this information, they have to release files on everything. And in one of the hearings that they were talking about, they were mentioning how like aliens were real and that they've made contact before and that they have aliens. And I don't remember if there were any big details outside of that. I think the hearings came out sometime early last year. I want to say like April or March, and you guys could go find it yourselves too. But I thought that was pretty compelling because these guys are all under oath, like they're supposed to be telling the truth. And we know that people don't do that anyways, but the fact that they would lie about like to this extent about aliens, I just think it's really weird. And so I think that this argument is pretty compelling. I think it's for the alien case, but again, there's no concrete evidence. They didn't show us any pictures, or they didn't bring in their friend alien. They didn't bring fucking ET to the hearing and be like, yeah, you could ask my boy over here and he'll tell you all about like the alien species, And then the last thing in the alien argument is all of the alien footage and all of the debunking behind it, because people like to take videos and say like, oh, these are aliens, like these are UFOs and they've been flying around here and they're shooting weird lights, or we got the orbs in the sky, and a lot of them have been debunked. And I think that this is something that actually hurts the alien argument, because it's really hard to tell when you think of an alien, they're in a flying disc or like a flying saucer or whatnot. And the fact that nobody's been able to like actually record one or prove it, it's, kind of hurts the alien argument. And it makes sense just because that if aliens, did really have technology, surely they have some way to like hide themselves from the camera point of view, or, be smart enough to not be detected, because I would assume that they probably don't want us to see them. But you would think that maybe by now, like surely somebody has some footage of an alien. And it's always really hard because, those videos are really grainy, and it's hard to know whether or not those people are like actually contracted by the government and, we're being paid off to be like, hey, tell them that this is fake, tell them you have a degree in this stuff. And I don't want to go all down that conspiracy. Like Occam's razor says that they're just some real people that know how to like debunk footage and that they've actually debunked it. And so again, this hurts the alien argument. At the end of the day, nothing has been concrete yet. I do think that it would be really interesting the day that we found out like yes or no. If we had a time travel machine and maybe we could go back to New Mexico in 1947, we might know for sure. If you guys get the reference, shout out you guys. But until then, I guess this is just going to be an ongoing debate. Shout out Obama for bringing it back up to attention though. As for me, I guess I'm going to give the cop-out answer and say that I also think that aliens do exist, but in the same sense as of Obama, is like, maybe they're not looking like ET, but they might, just be on another planet, and maybe they're like just little worms or whatever. But hey, I bet they're out there, and I think it'd be really cool if we ever found some other species. They might end up looking like the Socotra Island animals, and I think that'd be really cool. Maybe we could make a teleportation machine and like have a zoo over there or something. I don't know. Thank you all for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and be sure to let me know, what do you guys think? Are aliens real or are they not? But thank you all, and have a great day.